Hello, I'm Mark Anderson, American Free Press editor, and I'm on a news trip with my assistant Angie in Buffalo, New York in September 2010, watching the Discovery Channel's overview of Freemasonry. And while it's interesting, and while it seems to have an objective overview of the mysterious and esoteric world of Freemasonry, having watched the show for well over an hour, it's very simple to conclude that this show, after giving a look at Freemasonry and what seems to be an examination, then at the end, as one could almost predict, writes it off as all largely hearsay, wild speculation, and so on and so forth, that Freemasonry could be anything but relatively harmless. It mentioned the Skull and Bones fraternity at Yale, where George Bush Sr. and his son went, and even Sr.'s father himself. And it covered a lot of interesting things, the Knights Templar, the Knights of Malta, all sorts of things, Masonic lodges in Europe and the United States, that George Washington apparently was a Mason. And one of the many problems with this show is that it seems to equate all Masonry as roughly the same level. And in other words, all Masonic lodges are essentially the same. It doesn't make the very logical observation that a certain sect or strand of Masonry could be far worse than another. Nobody ever said that all Masons are bad, and the show seems to say that either they're all bad or they're all good, while going into the typical refrain that all conspiracies are theories. In other words, there can be no such thing as a conspiracy fact. Any examination of something beyond the obvious, behind the throne or anything like that, is automatically characterized as theoretical, when logic would tell us, pure logic alone, that there are going to be conspiracy facts and there are, yes, going to be conspiracy theories. But this show on the Discovery Channel today in September 2010, I'm sure will be repeated. And I want it to be clear to all American citizens out there that this is a very interesting but quite misleading show about the Bushes, about Harry Truman it's showing right now, who was purported to be a 33rd degree Mason. And so we need to be very, very critical and very, very careful of what we believe. It did have Jim Marrs, a noted conspiracy fact and conspiracy theory author, on there, and some others who spoke critically of Masonry, and deservingly so. But nevertheless, the show ends up concluding that Masonry is largely harmless. It writes it off. It writes off all sorts of theories that at first it posed as that it could be true, or they at least could conceivably be true. So keep that in mind as you watch this show. I think American Free Press will occasionally point out these matters, and we want to sound a cautionary note whenever the establishment or corporate media produces a show like this, especially on Masonry. So for this commentary, I'm Mark Anderson of American Free Press. We'll see you next time.